Welcome back, everyone. The video you're about to watch is part of a live stream series that I do on Twitch where I teach people how to build an Android app from start to finish by building a task management application. I've removed the episode numbers from the videos because it's designed that each one can be consumed individually. Each week, I pick a particular topic or feature and focus on just that for the live stream. If you are interested in watching the full playlist, check out the links in the description below. But if you just found this one and it intrigues you, I hope you enjoy it and let me know what you think. Happy Wednesday, everyone. How does the microphone audio sound? Does this work okay? Hopefully that sounds good. And as long as this sounds good, then I shouldn't have to worry because this is all you'll be hearing for the rest of the stream. I'm sorry, all you have to put up with is my voice. I can see in the equalizer that it might be picking up some of the background noise, but it's mostly good. Let's make sure that crisp is set up correctly. It looks like it is. Okay, we should be okay. And happy Wednesday, everyone. Welcome back. Um, Not 100% sure what we're going to do today. Have some ideas. Let me pull up the application and I'll share them with you. Does sound like maybe you're through the MacBook. I should not be. Let's check that this is actually using. Yep. My source settings are through Crisp, and Crisp is set to use my microphone, so if I turn this off, okay, it's definitely going through my microphone. Um, ah, classic user error, but I'm glad that you figured it out. Shit happens. I would not put it past me to have technical difficulties, so I'm glad that we got that sorted out. Um, yeah, so what are we going to work on? I put out a Twitter poll earlier. And it seems like every time I suggest doing something that is, where is it at? It seems like every time I suggest doing something that's not Android, thinking that people would be into it, Twitter always votes against that, which I kind of understand why. Um, and I'm happy to do what people are interested in learning, but I will probably find time eventually to work on the other stuff on stream if I don't make time otherwise. But I'm happy to keep doing some Androidy stuff today. Keep making progress on our TOA application. So let's dive into that. Let's switch over here. Um, so here's the GitHub repo, exclamation point GitHub if you're new here and you haven't watched it before. But we've been working on, well, we want to eventually build is like a wholesome task management application. And we haven't gotten very far. Do I have an emulator open? I don't think I do. We haven't gotten very far. We've basically got a login screen, a task list screen, and the ability to add new tasks. And with each of those, we've actually got like input validation. We've spent a lot of time talking about the architecture around all of those things. Uh, but there's still lots of features we can add. So if you have any ideas, hearing that in chat of what we could add tonight, let me know. I have some ideas that I will talk about. If not, if nothing from chat. But one thing I do want to keep in mind, I always source ideas from people of topics to cover on stream, and I don't always get around to them, and I try to keep a mental list, but I need to write a physical list. And as I was talking to Prince earlier, one of my ideas for keeping track of like a physical list is that this project really leverages like GitHub projects. And within a project, we have like a board of tickets about certain ideas. And so, what I want to get better at is every time someone suggests a stream idea, that if there's a way to tie it into this particular app, that I record it as like an issue within this project. So, like, one example actually is inside, we can go into developer experience, but one of the things that keeps coming up is app modularizing, multi-module apps, because modularization is such a weird word to say. Um, and I've been putting that particular idea off for a little while because I don't feel right now that the app has enough to go into separate modules. that's debatable. Some people might say it's better to start early. I don't know. It's comes around, but I've never recorded this idea, so I'm going to do that really quick. So support multi-module application structure. We can actually convert this to an issue. Nice. And then we can put some notes in here. So need to decide what our different modules will be. I guess that's it. Need to decide what our different modules will be. We'll also want to ensure that some core dev tools like KTLint and Detect are shared across each module. That's one important thing to remember, which should happen already with the way our app structure works, but something to keep in mind. So I'm going to try to do this moving forward, and this is kind of my call to those of you who are joining in now. If you have ideas that I haven't touched on yet that you don't think are recorded anywhere in this issues page, let me know. I can make one, or feel free. The project is public. You can click on that link and you could create an issue yourself. There's actually a way to make like issue templates. I could set up like a stream idea template that people could fill out, but doesn't need to be that complicated. But yeah, so what are we going to work on tonight? Well, one idea I had two, three. I have a lot. So one that I keep thinking of is working on an empty state here, because this is just a lot of blank space when you don't have anything input. The second I add, hey Abzal, how are you doing? The second I add something, we will see a task in here. So that's one thing, is considering building an empty state. Another idea is trying to make this actually like functional, where we could click through these words. Then we could click through like the schedule and we would see like the date change up here and the corresponding tasks would change accordingly. And right now we're fetching all tasks regardless of date. So if I make one, let's call this just to make sure. Which, if I made one for tomorrow, we'll still see this on the home screen. But technically we shouldn't, right? So that's another idea I had for working tonight. Really torn between those two. The third one, which we can do no matter what, is I'm really irked by the fact that this floating action button sits below our status bars, so I really want to fix that. And maybe we'll do that first as just a fun side venture, because that shouldn't take too long. So let's do that. I'm just going to make a new branch real quick. And what are we going to call this? Move, fab, above, nav, button. Okay, so let's talk about how we can do this. Well, for just for everyone's knowledge, we use this accompanist insets library. Let's find it here. Oops. Insets, here we go. And where's the official documentation? I know there's another page. Here we go. This page is better. So we use this accompanist insets library for dealing with like the edge-to-edge UI that this app supports. So if you notice here, like the top of the app goes all the way. I don't know why I keep getting this Git not installed. The top of the app goes all the way to the top of the screen and the bottom of the screen, but it does give us ways to support these system bars, which I want to figure out. I thought we had done already, but then I'm looking at the emulator with the 3-button display, and it seems like we have not. So let's talk about how we can do that. So jumping to this padding modifiers, this is a really cool thing that the insets library gives us. It gives us these special modifiers to apply padding to a composable to match a specific type of inset. So there's status bars padding, navigation bars padding, system bars padding, which is both of those. So the naming convention, in case you didn't know this, I get confused a lot. Status bar is what is at the top of your phone. This has your time, your notification icons, your Wi-Fi indicator, things like that. Navigation bars are at the bottom. This includes the little bar for swipe gestures or the more old school 3-button approach that you see down here. IME padding, which is input method something, your keyboard. And then navigation bars with IME padding, which will be basically be like the navigation bars plus the keyboard. So this is probably what we want to consider using. It depends on whether or not we want the fab to come up when we want the keyboard to come up, I guess. That's one thing to keep in mind. And cutout padding, which, without clicking on it, I'm guessing it has to do with, like, display cutouts. So this would be, I guess, like the notch on, like, the Pixel 3. That would be my guess. But anyways, knowing that we have navigation bars padding, um, let's dive into that. Oh, and there's a really great example right in the docs here. So this is commonly used to move. Oops, we need to turn that off. Um, how do I? Oh God, I don't remember. I should not be getting system notifications. But anyways, um, this is commonly used to move composables out from under system bars. An example is a floating action button. So they show like this navigation bar's padding on the floating action button. So we're missing this. Let's add that. Um, let's find where our floating action button is used. Yo, Prince, subscribe for 9 months. Thank you so much. My God, is that how long I've been an affiliate? Maybe. Um, but thank you so much. Okay, so what are we looking at here? So we've got the scaffold for the loaded task screen. Here we have an add task button. We can see we create this floating action button, which is, yep, a material 3 thing. So what we should do is we should pass a modifier to this. And we'll do modifier um, dot system or navigation bars padding. Okay, and so let's run this again. And so this PR might actually be just like one line, which is fine. Um, Maybe I rename this branch and we dig into some of the other stuff we talked about. But it was just really bothering me to run this and see that, so I wanted to fix it. Does anyone have like a particular preference between empty states or can I set up a poll? I believe I can. Give me a moment. Um, we're gonna set up a poll because I know not everyone wants to um, chat. So let's do this. All right, small poll. All of you watching can. Um, well, it should be starting. Yes, there should be a poll running. All of you can vote on what we're going to work on. While that poll's running, I'm going to. Oh my god, I really don't have. Why can't it find Git? Oh, the terminal can. Android Studio can. Okay, we're just going to use the terminal then. Moving fab above nav bars. Ah, and this is going to have to run my static analysis checks and all that fun stuff. So we've also passed 42 stars on this repo, which is awesome. Thanks, everyone. Hopefully we can get going a little faster soon. I'd love to get this closer to something I can actually use. And I think now that I can store tasks, it's actually pretty close. Maybe what I'm missing is implementing these buttons to actually like close out tasks and stuff. That could be maybe a focus of like next week, for example. Aha. Okay. And we'll push that. And then we'll get the pull request going shortly. I gotta get better at filling the dead air on these streams too. One day. One day I'll be a better streamer. Okay, here we go. So move fab of nav bars using accompanist modifier to do this. Listen, I can't help it. You're right though. You're right. I'm just rambling, and I should not do self-deprecation rambling. Oh, view tasks by date one. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do in a moment. Um, did I make a design? Design and branding. Nice. Okay, so while that runs, let's check out. Let's make a ticket an issue to record the work that we're about to do. Actually, so allow user to navigate and view tasks by date. So clicking the arrows on our task list screen should allow the user to move forward and backward in time to see tasks for a given date. Projects. I guess this counts as task management. We'll submit this issue. Okay, let me zoom in on this screen too when we go back to GitHub. So this is ticket number 84. So let's make a new branch for that. TOA 84 tasks by date. All right, this should be fun. I have a couple ideas on where we can start with a feature like this. And the first one is I guess let's talk about the domain layer / and data layer for this. And let's talk about how it works now for the task list view model. So the task list view model, when it's initialized, it calls this get all tasks use case. And then it basically says, which gives us a flow of tasks. It basically says, on each emission from this flow, here's our view state. And then that launches in our view model scope. So in practice, we would kind of do something like this, but instead of being in the init method, what we would have is like our view state would have, ooh, this is actually really interesting. It would have like a selected date with it. So that's the first thing we could do. And that, I guess, would, well, this goes back to another issue that I've talked about in the past, which is I really want to move away from these sealed classes. I understand that they give us like finite states that a screen can exist in, but they're just really hard to work with on screens where individual pieces changes. So instead of a sealed class, which is like an enum where you're one of these three types, I would just make like a single data class where each of those things are a property on it. So I could have a data class for task list view state. It would have something like show progress bar, and that'll be a Boolean. Or we could even go a little more vague and call this show loading, is what I like to do. And then we could have, tasks, which is a list of tasks, and we could make this nullable because I may or may not have tasks, or I could default to like an empty list. But I think actually it makes sense. A complete absence of data should be null. I don't want to confuse this with an empty list, which actually means we don't have any data, right? And then the other thing could be an error message, which would be nullable. I might not be in an error state. And then I could say, well, our selected date would be a local date, um, and we can default, to today. So this is how I would do it if it wasn't a sealed class. And this just becomes a lot easier because this gives us like something called the copy method. Um, would you believe that anyone launching the app should default to have an empty? Um, I mean, it would have an empty. Um, so I guess what would happen, right, is the screen would load. We would see our selected data is today, and this would trigger a data request to fetch the tasks for today, which would be empty, and then the user will see the empty state. Um, but I guess what this prevents is if I did something like this, where I say we start with an empty list, then I could end up with where the user sees both the empty state and they see the loading indicator, which I don't know if we would want that. Um, so that's why I would have this actually be like nullable and say like we might not have content. Um, if we didn't want to work with nulls, what I've seen, so this is what I think I'll go with, but just to talk out loud, what I've seen people do as well is we could have some sort of calculated property called, let's call it like show content, right? And we could say we only show content if, um, you know, uh, if not show loading and tasks is not empty or something like that. But I feel like there are more corner cases. I would rather have it just be um, nullable here. I suppose we could have like a separate property for show tasks that we configure, but I think this covers it. I think this is ultimately everything we would need to make the screen exist. Um, so let's try this out. So just all of the necessary. I'm trying to get better at documenting my public classes, by the way. Configurations for the task list screen UI. Um, but now that we've changed this to a data class, this is going to break a bunch of our code, but let's just do a build and let's let the compiler tell us what's broken. So, but what we'll get out of this that'll be a little nicer is mm, oh, okay. Well, here's some errors. So the first one is we lose this when statement um, because we don't have finite individual view states. Instead, we would have a few if statements that configure the UI. So I would say if view state that show loading, then we add this material 3 progress bar. Hey Dan, how are you doing? And then we can also say, so what I would do here is I would say if view state that tasks, um, I guess, is not empty is what I would put here. So if our tasks are not empty, let's just show this. Actually, let's do this. If tasks is not equal to null, um, we would do this. And then the error state never existed, so we'll add that later. I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. So here's how that would look. Um, I would also change this. I guess instead of consuming a view state, I would have it consume the tasks. Um, so task list task. That's that. And Okay, so that's compiling again. What we're doing right now, for those of you who just joined, is I've gone to the dark side and I'm changing um, my sealed class view state into a data class. The other thing is thinking about the order of what I just changed up here. So we're first checking if we're showing loading, and we're next checking if we should show the content. Um, I'm going to move this to where the loader is at the bottom. And the reason is if I'm ever in a state where I want to show like refreshing data, then I probably want the loader to be on top. But the way Compose lays them out, it lays them out in order. So if I show a progress bar, but then I show my list of tasks on top of it, then the user never sees the progress bar. So I'm basically changing the order in which they're drawn. That even though right now these should never be shown together, um, that's like support for it, I guess. Um, what about moving the if I just wrote into loaded task content? Um, I could. Um, I guess, yeah. And let's rename this actually. Let's rename this to task list. Um, oh, actually, is that bad? Do I have more than one task list? Yeah, okay. Um, okay, we'll just call it that for now. Um, yeah, I think that's valid to say that it'll be more readable on the higher level. So what we can do is this will be nullable, and here we just say if task equals null, return. Okay, I'm okay with that. Um, yeah, I wonder if there's a better name. I don't want to call it task list because that's what the actual list composable is. Um, I guess we could call it like, hmm. Loaded test content is fine. We'll stick with it for now. So let's do another build and let's see what else needs to change, which is probably this view model. Actually, yes, it's this view model. So we can start with um, giving this the default value. Whoops. Um, I'm going to change this just because I've seen this before. View state as state flow. This is one way to convert it into a immutable version. Um, so we've got this. Um, okay, so what we did in the past, let me close the emulator for a moment. So what we did in the past is we had this function to take a result and convert it into our view state, um, which was fine when we were using like sealed classes and we were creating a new view state each time. But I think what we would do here is, um, I'm wondering if I should get rid of this method because what I'm going to do here is, I guess actually this is fine. We can leave this here. All I need to do here is viewState.copy, whoops, viewState.value.copy, and then tasks is result.data, show loading is false. This is what happens in the success case. And then here we do, again, viewState.value.copy. That's the error message, and then again, show loading is false here. So those are our cases. I wonder if that's it. Let's run our tests and make sure everything still passes. I struggled with that copy a lot. Check this tweet for a proposed solution. Okay, let's see what you did. Um, Having a data class represent your view state and exposing with a stateflow can be hectic to maintain reducer operations. You can make a stateflow class that delegates its implementation to mutable stateflow and implement the methods to handle state changes. Okay, if you don't want to get filled with copies. Interesting. So here's our view state. We have a view state flow. Interesting. And then we have functions on here called set loading, set item list. Ooh, okay. I see what you did here. I like that. So you avoid putting the copies inside the view model. They're still there, but that's interesting. I like that approach. I don't know if I'm going to try it right now, but I do like it. Maybe I'll try it when I get more going on in this screen. But aha. Okay, here we go. Um, what is this one? Testing successful load. So here, I guess we're expecting okay, show loading, false. And then here, show load. That should fix it. Man, my computer is chugging along today. It's it's not happy with me. I'm not sure why. Yeah, I also saw I guess you still get a lot of copies, but shout out to my friend TJ for making this MVI library. Um I know he's still actively working on it, so proceed at your own risk as far as like production projects, but um it was his way of kind of building like a reducer comparison. But one thing, so let me show you examples of where he has like basically it's every time you want to change your state, you create something called a mutation, and then here you call the copy method, and then you just do whatever you need to do. It's a little less lines than like viewState.value.copy all over the place. Um, but it still is a copy method at the end of the day. Really interesting library. I'm trying it out in another side project of mine. Um, it's fascinating. Give it a star. Check it out if you're interested in MVI-esque projects. Nice. Our build passed. So let's. Am I still having issues in Android Studio? I am. What happens if I do this? Oh, it still works. Okay. Um, let's do. What we're gonna do here is doesn't support default arguments though, right? What do you mean? You can put. Um, you have a loading. Oh, I guess not in the same way. No, you would put the default arguments on the data class like this. But yeah, I guess you don't really have like actions. Although, so what you can do, and what I've done before, is actually, so in this case, um, I could pull this out into an extension function called like loading mutation, and then that can be reused over and over. Any, if I have multiple actions that trigger loading, I could make this its own function, and then like I have one loading mutation. So I guess kind of you could find a way to do it. Um, I don't know if that makes sense. I can show an example of that if you want to see it. But yeah, yeah, that's a good point. But it would be the same thing. You could make your own function that is like, set list mutation, and then it would always um, clear the loader there to data class. Okay, so that's our UI logic for this so far. As we, well, part of our UI logic is moving. Oops, why did this fail? Um, let's push this branch. Make sure this works. Um, part of the UI logic, I guess, we changed our view state. We gave it the ability to have like the current date. But let's talk about our data layer a little bit. Um, where's my icon? Okay, ID is killing me today. We have a task list repository, and one thing to note here is we have this function, fetch all tasks. So a couple things need to change here. We're going to need a method to fetch tasks for date. So let's add that. This will be fetch tasks for date. The date will be a local date, and this will return a flow result list task. I might make a type alias up here. Task list result. And then we can clean up our flows and say this is a flow of task list result. Oh, do I want that? Yeah, that's fine. Request all of the tasks that have been created for the supplied date. Okay. Implementations of this include our room task list repository. So let's implement that. Fetch tasks for date. We are going to do, well, we've got this query, fetch all tasks. We can make another version, fetch tasks for date. Here, the date should be a string because it's stored in our room database as a string. And we could say where scheduled date, is it equals date? Is this not, how do you, sorry, I have to Google this because I don't know. Query parameters room. I haven't done this in a while. So I need to see the documentation around querying for, why is this deprecated? Oh, because it's in a new package. Um, oh, they use like a little colon. Yeah, not string interpolation. Okay. So we can fetch task for date. So now we can do the same thing here. Let's see. So we have these functions. I'm thinking about the date formatting down here. We have these functions where we map a persistable task to our domain task and vice versa. And within them, they have these transformations for the date. We kind of need to do the same thing in our own class. So what I was thinking is, what if I made those their own private functions? Um, so we could do like local date dot to persistable date string. And here we can return return local date dot parse this. Wait, I want to go well the other way around. Sorry, return persistable date formatter dot format this. And so what we would do down here is we could say this dot scheduled date dot to persistable date string. And then we could do the other way. We could do fun string dot parse persistable date string. And this will return a local date. And this can give us return local date dot parse this persistent date formatter. So here we can then do this dot scheduled date dot to persistable date. Whoops. Parse persistable date string. There we go. So the reason I wanted these two private extension functions is so I can use them in my query. So here I can say return task.dao dot fetch tasks for date, and then I can do date.toPersistable date string right there. And then we map task list, do our mapping, the same mapping as earlier, and that should give us a flow from the database. Nice. So that's the data layer. We do have a domain layer to think about, which is this get all task use case. Um, we want to make the same thing, but for a date. So let's make a new use case. Whoops. And let's call this get tasks for date use case. Get tasks for date use case, and then this will be invoke. I also want to use the task list result thing here. But this invoke should take in the date that we're pulling for. Tasks for a given date. Yeah, that should be the interface. We'll have a similar concrete implementation. Let's call this prod get tasks for date use case. Get tasks for date use case. This consumes a task list repository. This is get tasks for date use case. Yeah, that's a valid question. Let me tell you why I'm okay with my solution in a second. Let me finish making this use case. Task list result and fetch tasks for date. Yeah, so you're absolutely right. Any string can call this extension function. That is one reason I like private extension functions on occasion. So inside our room task list repository, these extension functions are private. So nowhere else in the app can I call this. Now, sure, does that mean that I couldn't accidentally do, you know, uh, domain tasks? What is it? I could potentially do like description.to or parse persistable date string. Like I could do this, yes. Um, but by being private and being exclusive to this file, I think I limit my abilities to misuse it. Um, and it's strictly within this file. So I guess from a theoretical standpoint, like the possibility is there. But one, I kind of like that. I also think that it's so appropriately named, you should catch yourself not parsing it unless you think the string represents a date. Um, Another option in this particular example is Room does give you the ability. I don't know if it works for queries, but like Room gives you the ability to set like type converters. So I could have my room entity. I could have my room entity have like a date, and then the one type converter is what parses it from a string. So it happens at like a database operation and not something I wrote myself. Um, Reduce it from a scope perspective, but I want to reduce it to the function signature. Interesting. So can we do that? Let me make sure this compiles real quick, and then let me make sure like just the tests still run, and then we'll look at something, because I have an idea. Because you mentioned the idea of value class, but I'm wondering if a room entity can have a value class. Um, and it's specifically the string to date conversion, right? Like local date to string. I mean, yeah, I guess the date doesn't matter. That I can convert from a date to a string. But you're right, from string, To persistable date. Okay. I'm curious if room will support value classes is all. As like a type argument. So that's what I want to figure out. So you would make it okay. I see what you're saying. A type converter. So would you do a type converter for like the value class? I guess you could. Um, I also just realized in hindsight here that I only needed to pull out the local date extension function, um, because that's used twice. But this one about parsing the date string was only used once. Um, so maybe that's it's still a good question. Like, how would you do this if you needed to? But after talking about it out loud, I realized on that particular function, I didn't need to pull it out because it was only used once. It's this one. It's the date to string that is used twice. Once when I'm storing the item, and once when I'm trying to query. Um, maybe that's something to think about if I ever pull this back out. But that's a good catch. I've limited my extension functions here. Um, so that's a benefit. It's also possible that we have two pieces of code here on a list of tasks. So um, I'm thinking about like that could be its own private function as well. So let's do that really quick. Let's put that up here. So we could do private fun list uh, to domain task list. And then here we would just do um, return this dot map. Okay. And then here we can do task list dot to domain task list. That reduces a little bit of duplicate code as well. Nice. I really like the map syntax you can get out of Kotlin flows. I think this reads really nicely. Um, okay, so let's commit this code real quick. Um, implementing data layer, date search, and use case. So let's think about what needs to happen next. So we also need, well, one that just occurred to me is our Hilt integration. We have this use case module. We need to tell Hilt um, how to create that get task by date use case. So we can do binds. We can do bind get tasks for date use case. Um, prod get task for date use case will be. So Hilt will know how to create this dependency now. And we can also start going into now our task list view model. And we can replace this with the get tasks for date use case as what gets passed into this view model. And now this call in our init function doesn't work anymore, um, because we're not calling the same use case. So how do we have this call for the date? Um, this is a really good question. So what we can do here is, I believe we can do, can I do it here? Let me think. Let's talk about what we have to do, and then I'll think about where this goes. So what we can do is we can say we want to observe um, the view state's scheduled date. Select the date, sorry. And we want to do distinct until changed, because I only care when that scheduled date has changed. And then I want to say every time that happens, we are going to, first we're going to show loading. So we're going to do viewState.value.copy, show loading. And then we're going to say, ooh, hold on. It's, hmm. So we have a flow that gives us task for a date. We have another flow that happens every time a date changes. And so how do we do that? Um, I know there's like a combine from flows that like maybe that's what it is. Look this up. So combine returns a flow whose values are generated with a transform function by combining the most recently emitted values by each flow. So I think um, I don't think it's combine because I don't want the results of both flows. I'm wondering if this is the right architecture for what we're trying to do here. We keep that for now. So this is our selected date flow. So what am I trying to do? Okay, so we have this mutable state flow that is our current view state. And it has a new property called a selected date. And similarly, let me show you this. So let me type this out real quick, just so it's a little clear. Um, um, so I have two flows here. I have a flow that is basically like every time our selected date on this screen changes. And then I have another flow that is like the tasks for that scheduled date. So it's like I need a way to map from one flow to another. Is it combined? Okay. So so let's try this then. So we've got combined transform sounds close to what I need. Okay, flat map latest also sounds familiar. That actually sounds right. Okay, yes. WebShark for the win. Returns a flow that switches to a new flow produced by transform function every time the original flow emits a new value. When the original flow emits a new value, the previous flow produced by transform block is canceled. This is great. This is exactly what I want. So we want viewState.map. So we get our view state. We map specifically for the selected date. Distinct until changed because my view state could change otherwise. I only care when the date changes. And then we're going to do flat map latest, selected date. And then this will get mapped to um, get tasks for date use case dot invoke selected date. And then here we could say on each of these, Um, well, here we do the on each result. We update our view state, and then we could do launch in view model scope. Yes, sorry, that's what I was getting at. I need to depend on the selected date. Okay, that's pretty cool. So I might put this into um, would map work? I don't know actually. What is the difference between flat map and map? Um, because I don't think right. Yeah, I think that's it. That map doesn't create a new flow. I think flat map creates a new flow. Um, why latest over just flat map? I don't remember. Okay, yeah, this is a yeah. So this is map latest right here. Returns a flow that emits elements from the original flow transformed by the transform function. So it's still one flow. All it's doing is mapping the values, like we had here. Um, this is still all one flow, but it's basically saying instead of giving me the entire view state, just give me this one property that I'm mapping out. But it's still all like one flow. Um, it cancels previous computation if a new value exists. That makes sense. That's what I kind of assumed by latest. Um, yeah, but then so what would? Oh, is there no just flat map? Oh, flat map is deprecated. Maybe that's what it used to be. Um, I don't know, that seems like another thing. I'm not gonna dig into the docs. Um, flat map latest makes sense. Um, okay, this reads like what I want. So let's run it and let's see. So if this works out correctly, um, I would expect to only see one item here on this screen. Right. Well, not only would I want to cancel the previous emission, but what's happening in here, again, it's layered by the use case, but the reason that this is a flow is because it's basically an open database connection. It's an open database connection of the task for a given date. But if I change the date, like, so I'm listening for today's tasks, I'm listening for today's tasks, I change the date. I don't want to listen to today's tasks anymore. I now want to listen to the task for the new date. So that's another reason why flat map latest seems to work really well here. Um, okay, so if this works right, what I'm expecting is I should see um, just one item, this first test item. And so let's run that and let's see if that works. And then what we'll also do to test before implementing the buttons is I'll hard code to like tomorrow and see that this works. And that's basically just my way of making sure that the scheduled task is mapping to, or the scheduled date is mapping to tasks correctly. Nice. So we're seeing our tasks actually be filtered by date. So just for kicks and giggles, we're gonna do like +1 days on here, and we're gonna run this, and we're gonna see if we get the other task. Hey, Raphael, thanks for coming by. How are you doing today? Happy Wednesday. Yep, and I got the tasks for the next date. So cool. So we know that our infrastructure for this works. Now we need to make sure we can actually modify that date. So we'll do that in a moment. Um, so commit here. So managing the flow of data based on the selected dates. And do a git push. Okay, so we have these two buttons. Well, let's... Okay. Um, do have some thoughts here. How do I want to do this? Um, okay. Well, let's just talk through them all. So let's go look at the Compose UI code for this header. So that exists inside task list content. We have this loaded task content, and here we have a task list toolbar. So this is a surface that uses our primary color, and it's a row that has an icon button. The click needs to be handled. It has some text. This is hard-coded to today. That's going to change. And then another icon button, which also has like a click that needs to be implemented. So let's fill that in. So one thing we can do is we're going to change this to consume the information we want. So we're going to put on left button clicked. That's what we'll call it. This will be like a click listener. We'll have on right button clicked. And then we'll have our title, which will be a string. And these are not vals because this is a function. So we can put this in here on left button click. This will be our title, and this will be on right button clicked. So that gets filled in here based on loaded tasks content. So just thinking about how we want to do everything. So here's my first question is like, let me just fill these out. So the first one is thinking about the title. Why am I thinking about the title? What's so confusing here? Well, we've got our view state, and it's got the selected date that is a local date object. Now, let's say I want to consider like uh, words. Like, let's say I want to do something conditional, like if the date is today, then I return today. If it's tomorrow, I return tomorrow. If it's later than that, I return like a shortened date format, January 21st, or something like that. So, where would that logic go? Um, I don't, it is part of the view state. Um, it is part of the view state, right? So, one might think, well, why don't you just put it here? Why don't you just put selected date string right here? Um, Okay, great question. Why wouldn't we do that? Well, the reason I wouldn't do that is because, well, I'm worried about it being testable. Um, if that makes sense. Like, usually I have like an interface, like a datetime helper. Do I have one in this app? I don't have a date utils class in this class. Usually I make an interface called like a datetime helper, and then I have a function on it called like get relative day string, and then it returns some value. Um, that based on that, we know like what should be returned. Now, I guess because I can create a view state and I can pass in whatever I want here, then I guess a computed property would be testable. Um, I guess we could do that. So, okay, we could do that. So let's Well, the closest thing to a helper is extension function, but I think a property is fine. Yeah, I agree. And I might put some helpful extension functions in here, but okay, let's just start typing it out. So let's call it select the date string. This will be a string. So let's do our getter. So what do we want to know? Well, we want to know if it is today. So we say select the date equals local date dot now. Is tomorrow will be select the date equals local date dot now dot plus date as well. Okay, so that's how we know if we are today or tomorrow. So then we could do something like return when is today. We're going to do, I'm going to have this return a UI text because I want to use a string resource here. Let me do that really quick because I think those are important and I want to make sure I keep coming back to those. So we could have today as a string resource, tomorrow as a string resource. Just good to keep those in mind. Trying to replace hard-coded strings when I see them. So UI text resource text r.string today. Is tomorrow. We do UI text resource text r.string tomorrow. And then otherwise, we need to parse the date ourselves. So we could say like UI date format would be something like how do you do this? Month, day? Do I do something? Is it something like that? And then datetime formatter of pattern UI date format dot format select the date. Why is this yelling at me? Oh, it's UI string, and then we do UI text dot string text UI string. So I don't know if this formatter is correct, but I know how we can find out. So let's write a test for this. Okay. We're going to Control-Shift-T, create a new test, task list view state text. Okay. This will be a unit test. So let's write these tests out. So in a text, we'll say parse date string for today. So here we'll say today is local date dot now. We'll say our view state will be task list view state. Select the date equals today. And we'll say assert, let's say expected string will be UI text dot resource text r dot string dot today. And then we'll say assert that view state dot selected date string is equal to expected string. So that's our test. Our input date will be today. We set up our view state. We get that, our expected string, and then we call this computed property and we see what this gives us. So we're going to copy this 3 times. We're going to do parse date for tomorrow. So we'll change this to, tomorrow plus days 1. So the expected string would be tomorrow. And then parse date string for future. So, here we'll do, 2 days from now. And then what we basically need to duplicate the expected formatting. So like our expected date format would be, I think this is what I put. Um, expected date string would be datetime formatter dot of pattern expected date format dot format 2 days from now. And then, so our expected string will be string text, expected date string, and assert that. So those are our tests to make sure we get today, tomorrow, and the expected date. So let's run it and let's make sure those tests pass. This wasn't very TDD of me because I wrote the code first, but it is what it is. Uh, test events were not received. What does that mean? I have a compilation error? Oh, that makes sense. Our tests are broken because of the thing. Okay, so we just need to do um, this mock here. Uh, we're going to need to change. We're going to need to change this test for our task list view model now that we have broken it. But, let's make it compile and let's make that test pass later. I want to get our view state test passing first. So, he was hoping. Nice. All three tests pass. Okay, so let's run tests for the repo again, and let's get everything passing again before we run this. Um, just while I'm here, we may as well. I think the biggest thing will be inside like our task list view model robot. Here where we mock all task result, we're going to need to change this to say, mock tasks for date result. Um, so here we could do mock tasks for date result. Um, what we need to do is we need to know for what date we're mocking and what is the result for that date. And then in our fake task list repository, we would do the same thing, mock tasks for date result, um, date and result. Let's go in here and change this. So um, date will be a local date. And then here, so every time we call mock.fetch test for date, for this date, we return a flow of that response. So I'm going to need to wait for Gradle to run again, but that should, wait, what? Um, where are the tests running? I know they're running somewhere. Let's just run this from the command line. But that should fix our tests and get everything running again.
Huh?
Just kidding, because why would I? Oh, right, in the tests themselves. Um, so we assume that the date is today by default because that's our default argument. So that's what we expect to pass into our mock call. And we would do the same thing here. The date will be local date dot now. Add names to call arguments. Test it again. Thanks for bearing with me while we get these tests working. Um, nice. Everything's looking good. A whole 18 tests. That's all we got so far. Um, And then before we actually manually test the UI, there's a little more we have to do. Um, nice. It's running for both variants by default. So we'll commit this in a moment, but there's a little more we have to do before we can test the UI. Um, it's usually pretty fast because this isn't a big project. I think it's because I'm streaming that my machine is just overwhelmed. Adding date formatting for a task list title. KTlib failed. Why? Oh, that happened before. I don't know what's up with that. I think that's a caching issue. Anyways, okay. So let's um, start working on the UI. So inside our task list content, wherever that was, so here we have our loaded task content, and it takes some stuff. So here we want to consume um, like our title, or do we want to call it the selected date string? I guess we can be more explicit. This is the selected date string. Um, this is a string. I'm going to put these above all the lambdas. Um, so here our title is selected date string. So um, let's start there. Um, oh, that get value, get string. This is a UI text. Um, so let's start there. Let's run this first. And all we're going to verify is that we should still see today as the title. We have not yet implemented the button clicks we need to move forward and backward on this screen, um, which we'll do in a moment. But let's just start by making sure the title still works. Okay, looks good. We still see today. So now let's implement these button clicks. So when I made the title composable here, I called it, on left button clicked, on right button clicked. But I think as far as our content is concerned, we should be more specific about like what the button does. So here I'm going to say on previous date button clicked. And then we can also say on next date button clicked. And these will be units here. So we need those. Those should get passed in here. On previous date button clicked. On next date button clicked. Those don't exist because they need to be pasted into this composable. So we'll do that. And then here we'll pass in here on previous date button clicked, on next date button clicked. We need to update our compose preview all the way down here. We can just put empties here. And this, just thinking about these buttons would actually lead to some really interesting Compose UI testing that maybe I'll show you after we get this working. But there's still more we have to do. I'm wondering about some if I want to do like a TDD approach here, which I think we should do. Um, let's do it. I keep saying that this is important, so let's do more of that today. So just before I write my tests, one thing to think about is we're going to need to expose some stuff on our view model to handle these new user inputs. Specifically, we're going to have on previous state button click. That's something our view model can do. And then we're also going to have on next date button clicked. This will be not yet implemented. So now that we have these, let's go write some tests for this. So let's go back to our task list view model robot. The other thing is we need to make our proxies here. So click previous date button. We'll do view model dot on previous date button. Whoa. On previous date button clicked. Click next date button. View model dot on next day button clicked. And we already have a way to assert the view state. So here's what I think a test should look like. Let's go into the view model tests here. And let's do something like this. So, sorry, just thinking out loud. So let's say navigate to previous date or click previous date. That's what we'll call it because it's not really navigate. We're going to say click previous date as our test here. So let's do test robot. I guess I technically have to mock the tests for the date or else, I don't know, will it fail? Let's find out what happens if I just call build view model, actually. Let me write out portions of the test and let's see what happens. So we're going to, our expected view state is going to be just the default state, but our selected date we're going to expect to be local date.now minus 1 days. Right? If I load the screen and I click the button, that's the only thing that should change, is our selected date should be yesterday. So we're going to do build view model. We're going to say click previous date button, and then we're going to say assert view state is expected view state. And the same thing for the next day, pretty much, with a slight change. So here we're going to do plus days. Oops. And we're going to say click next date button. Let's run these tests and let's see what our error output is. I'm worried that because our call to fetch data is inside the init method, that I need to mock something just to make it happy. But I have other issues. Apparently this did not compile. Oh, more previews need to be updated. Let's run our test again. Hey Dev, how are you doing? Welcome back. Yep, so our test failed because we could see this, no answer found for fetch tasks for date, blah blah blah. Okay, so let's do that real quick. In our view model test, so here we just need to I was debating just making a function that says like just return whatever, but I do think it's important for tests to be like accurate. So as annoying as it is to write this, I feel like we should. So we need to mock this for today. Our results can just be, you know, an empty list to please the compiler. But we're also going to need to mock tests for the previous day. Oops, minus days. One result. But I guess, hold on, let's think about this actually. So let's say that not only do we want to verify the selected date changed, but that I also want to verify that it when the selected date changes, it triggers an emission in our flow and reloads data, right? So let's do this. Let's create some test data here. Um, and what we're going to do is our expected view state will be that our selected date is yesterday, and the tasks will be our dummy task list. And so for day one, for today, we'll return an empty list. But let's say for yesterday, we return the task list task response. I should call this task list response. And why are you not valid? Oh, because task list result already has what we need. So this is a way of saying, okay, so this test effectively checks two things in it. It's making sure that the selected date changes and the task change as a result of moving to that other date. So I'm actually going to take the same idea now that we fixed it, and we're going to put that into the next date issue as well. Um, but let's make sure we change these to plus days and plus days, and click next date. So if I run these tests again, they'll still fail, but rather than having some mock exception, um, what we will see is the not yet implemented exception. And then that's fine. This is TDD, the tests fail. Yep, operation not yet implemented, operation not yet implemented. So now our tests fail. Let's make them pass. So we'll go back into our view model. What's going to happen here is we'll just say view state that value equals view state that value that copy, and then we'll say selected date is equal to view state that value dot selected date minus days 1. And similar logic inside when the next button is clicked, but we will add a day. I'll also, this could be, as a user, just having buttons to navigate one day at a time would be really annoying. That idea is not lost on me, but we're so early in development that I'm not really thinking about like a custom date picker. We could put a little calendar icon up here at the top and just let the user pick the date. Um, Maybe we remove the arrows entirely and we just have it so you can click at the top to change the date or change the view. Like, none of that is lost on me, but this is just how we're starting off. So let's run this and make sure our view model tests pass, which would be super exciting. They did not. Aha. They did not because it expected show loading as true, but was show loading as false. My tests are wrong. I should have known that when I made the expected view state that we would not be showing loading after we change these dates. So I need to change my expected view state, and it seemed like that was the only issue. So let's find out. Love it. Okay, it's still running, but yeah, it says test passed 4 out of 4. So now let's run the actual app and let's see it in action. And I just realized I might also want to add a case to my date header to also consider like yesterday. Um, but we'll find out. Cool. So this is today. Uh, I can explain. Wait, can I explain? Yes, I can explain. I know this doesn't work, but I'm surprised that it didn't. Hold on. So task list screen. Um, I'm over here thinking that this was a preview function that I modified. This was not the preview function. This is the actual implementation. So here we need to pass this onto the view model. Also, I just want to fix that order. We should clip this. This would make for. I've been clipping my a couple Twitch clips for potential YouTube videos, and I feel like that little mistake would be a good one. Okay, let's try this again. Here we go. Nice. We can see tomorrow, Jan 21st. Through. Okay, this is working great. Um, I just realized too that okay, let's commit this and let's talk about something else that I noticed that I think is a potential issue here. But we can say it. So, um, handling button clicks to move forward with things. Aha! So you brought up a great question, and exactly what I noticed is a bug, or not really a bug, but a weird behavior. Now, the reason y'all don't see the loader is because our use case is ultimately talking to a room database, which is pretty fast. Fast enough that, like, we don't see it, right? Um, but a loader does exist. So, what's interesting is um, let's go into our. Okay, let's go into our git test for date use case. Um, would it make sense to do it here? So how would I simulate a delay? I guess what I could do here is I could do like a map and then delay. Um, can I call delay in here? Oh yeah, I guess I could do on each. Does on each just return the same thing? Yeah, okay. So let's add a 1 second delay. So when the app first starts up, you might see immediately what our potential issue is. And it's that the loading screen is kind of by itself, separate from this content that's showing the header. So when I move this, why didn't that? Hold, hold on. Okay, this didn't do what I thought it was, but we could clearly see that it changes, and I never see the loader. It didn't fail the way I thought it would. So let's go back to our UI code here, and let's try to figure out why. So, um, just closing some tabs here. So we've got a box that fills the screen. We show the loaded task content, and then if show loading, um, add this progress indicator. Okay, so the loaded task content is always there, which, or rather, it's there as long as the tasks are not null. Could that be my issue? Should I be setting task to null every time I change the date? I guess I should be, shouldn't I? Let's start there. So that's done. That's a good idea, but that's already there. Let me show you. So every time, oh wait, maybe it's not. I thought we did. So, okay, so I guess we should do, um, so here we should do vState.value.copy. We should call show loading here. I thought I wrote it, but I must have gotten rid of it. We can also say our tasks are null because we're changing the date. Um, and then we invoke our use case. And then on each result from that, we do this. Um, why do I null the tasks? Because I want them to disappear, right? Like if they're today's tasks and I'm changing to tomorrow, those today's tasks need to come off the screen. So one way to do that is to null them out. Let's run this. Let's see how this looks. But nulling them out does lead to a separate problem that I was kind of close to getting at, is inside the loaded task content, we have that null check. If tasks are null, don't show anything, which means what I'm predicting will happen is when I click this button, everything on the screen goes away except the loader. And that's exactly what happened. And I want most of the screen to still be there, specifically like the toolbar and stuff. So, okay, but this worked for updating the loading state. That's good. That's progress. So what we need next is we can go in here. Let's get rid of that if check here. This scaffold should always be there. But I guess we could say here, if task list, if tasks are not equal to null, then we actually show the list. Otherwise, so we still get most of the scaffold. We get the floating action button, we get the top bar. We won't get the list of tasks unless we actually have tasks. So let's run this and let's see how this looks. So this means on the initial load, we'll see today. Nice. And then if I move forward, I see the load. Okay, this looks good. Now it's still kind of, an interesting thought. So I have two com- components here, really. I have like the loaded task content and then this progress bar. But what's happening in a weird way is like this progress bar, it's centered with respect to the full screen. But right, CP is getting where I'm going. It's not centered like within the content here, which makes more sense. So let's rethink this. I'm going to take this scaffold, um, and I'm gonna pull that out and put that right inside here. Like the content for the screen should be this scaffold. Um, and what we want here is this progress bar can go inside um, the scaffold. Now, I think let's do that for now, and we can get rid of that. So, yep. So we are going to have one issue. Hold on. Um, so we need to add this opt-in because that's experimental. Here we need to do view model or whoops view state dot selected date string that gets string. Um, here we'll do view state dot tasks. So we've cleaned that up. Um, so scaffold. Here's our floating action button. Here's our top bar. Um, and so here's the problem. So this align only works if you're in a box scope. So I need to create a box. Um, Thank you for that. I tried to split these up. This was, I question for y'all in chat right now. So there was a Twitter thread about how to keep composables maintainable, and for me, all it boils down to is just lots of small methods. Like every component, I split them up. And I tweeted something about this, and it made me wonder. Like, I almost thought it would be a cool blog post because this is a common question, so it could be searchable. But then I realized like the blog post would be like 20 lines. The blog post would basically just say use functions. But like if it's helpful, if it's a common question, if it answers a common question, then I guess it should exist, right? Um, I'm just curious what y'all think, if y'all agree with that mindset. I don't think blog posts need to be super long for them to be helpful. Um, I think just I knew if you were listening that you were going to come in and tell me to just do it. I you are like the angel on my shoulder all the time. I think like what would Prince tell me to do, and then I try to do that. Which is why I haven't drank any water today. Okay. Anyways, um, okay. So we need a box. We need a box in here in order to center the progress bar. So I think what we can do. Um, so I'm wondering is so I guess I could just wrap this in a box, right? But I think I need a modifier here to tell the box to fill the space. Um, but here's what I'm actually curious about is like if I make the box fill let's run this real quick and then my question is like if I do this, um, I'm wondering if I call fill max size on here, does it fill the size of the entire screen? Or is it that scaffold content? I think it is that. I think it's just based on where this is. I think it's just inside the scaffold content. Let's commit this, and then I have a silly idea on how we can check this. Um, so let's add everything. Refactoring, task list, content, organization. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, if I wanted it to be more than just break it up into functions, I can. Right. But if I want it to be more than just that one sentence or concept, what I can do is I can consider like, well, what goes into what function? What are like good naming conventions in Compose? Um, when should you pass modifier parameters into like your subcomposables? Like, I could definitely like provide some more, again, very, very like personalized and like subjective advice, but I mean that's what blogging is for, right? Um, okay, so I wanted to check how big is this box when I create it. So here's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to give it a background, and I'm going to do color.rep, and we're going to do the classic development process here. You're right. You're right. It's all subjective. Nice. So we can see based on that hack that um, when I within here when I tell the box to fill max size, it must be like the base scaffold composable knows where to set the bounds. So this little progress loader is everywhere except where the top bar is. That's good to know. Okay, so get rid of that background color. I think the reason my pushes aren't working is because of this magic delay. So let's get rid of that. Um, and let's do this again. Actually, did anything change now that I did that? I don't remember. Oh, yeah. Um, basically saying remove delay is what's changing there. Um, cool. So we can now navigate dates. I mentioned I would like to have yesterday. Feel like that would be Um, something good to have. So let's do that really quick too. Um, let's go into our task list view state. Let's go into our strings.xml real quick, and add this. Um, and words. So we added the string. We want to go into task list view state text, and then we're going to have put this at the top. We're going to have parse date string for yesterday. So the date will be yesterday. We'll do date that now minus day is one. I have a string that yesterday, but we also need to add the case here. So is yesterday, select a date, a local date that now minus day is one. Um, I might just to make this a little more readable, because it has like all these local date that now calls. But if we say today minus days, that's like a little more clear. Today, and then we can do like today. Yeah, it's just a personal preference. Cleans up a little bit of code. If it is yesterday, UI text dot resource text r dot string dot yesterday. Um, I'm wondering out loud if there's a date format that could add like, so this would be January 18th, and sometimes you see like the th after it. I wonder if like the date formatter does that. Um, let's see if we can find out if there's something about that. I don't think so, though. Yeah, nothing stands out here. I don't see any like letters here. No, that's fine. Um, we could roll it a solution for it if we wanted to, but I'm not going to do that. I just wanted to see if it came built in. Um, okay, so let's run this and let's make sure yesterday works. Um, and then yeah, like I said, um, we could look at some testing for this. That would be interesting. Um, or we could get into the empty states. Nice. Okay, but let's commit this code that we have for now, and let's get this pull request going. Um, let's get this pull request going in a minute, and then we can talk about anything else we might want to work on. You found some code that does it? Sure. If you can post like a link to a GitHub gist, that would be the best. Sometimes when people put like codes inside the Twitch chat, it formats weird on the screen and stuff. But ooh, long parameter list. Um, okay, I've seen this issue before. Yeah, post the Stack Overflow link if you don't mind. Um, so this is a static analysis check that we have in the project that okay, let me click this before I forget, and let me show why my push failed. So we have a static analysis check from detect for long parameter lists and functions. It's basically saying for like a class or a function, you should not have more than 6 parameters. Um, well, actually, so we have a function threshold, a constructor threshold, etc. Um, we could have it ignore default parameters and data classes, but it also lets me ignore annotated. And I'm going to say that for composable functions, um, I don't care about the long parameter list. So I think that's what I have to do. Let's run detect and let's see if this works. Got it. Okay. So the SO answer, parameter help. Yeah. Oh, nice. And that did pass. So let's add that. Um, ignoring long parameters. Composable functions. So to be determined if I actually want to do what this SO link says. But it did exactly what I thought is the datetime formatter can't doesn't support this. But what we can do is we could um, get the uh, I guess like the day number, and then we can do like a switch statement. Like, okay, if it's a one, like then it's the first. If it's and this is out of 10, so basically it would just be the first of the month would do this, but the 11th and the 21st. Ooh, well I guess 21st, 21 mod 10 would be one. Wait, so would this give you? I'm curious how. Oh, I see. Okay, so the only weird ones are 11 and 13, and I just noticed they have an if statement for those two specifically. Sorry, let me zoom in on this. Um, so yeah, they check the 11th and the 13th are like, and the 12th. I guess this range is like a special use case, but otherwise it's looking like the first, the second, the third, or the 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 14th, 15th, 16th, etc. So it's something we could add. I don't know if it's necessary. Like it would look nice. It would look nice, wouldn't it? A good algorithm to practice TDD, by the way. It would be. Um, because I almost feel like we could write like 31 assertions. Um, like we could just put all 31 assertions and see what we get. Do we want to, just for kicks? Um, well, okay. Huh. So the okay, so here's one something I'm hesitating about is like so if we look at this, this has a bit going on already. That's like um already formatting. I kind of want to like make what we just talked about like a separate helper function. Like, do I have a utils package? I think I have one somewhere. I don't. We're gonna make one. Um, and then here we could put in like date utils. So what I was thinking here is we could do like you know, get suffix for day, and then and this would return some string. So what we're thinking of is we could say given a day of a month. Let's actually specify that. Make an extension function for local date. We could do that. That makes sense. Okay. Okay, well actually, so here's why I didn't want to do this. I just remembered is for testing sake. I guess I guess in in my test I can create the day. Um yeah, we could do that. And then we get a little bit of type safety here. Um let's see. Okay, so for this local date, um parse the day of the month and calculate the suffix um uh for that day. example, first, second, third, whoops. Okay, so I guess this works. Um, and yeah, the only reason you're right, and that's exactly why I was hesitant on the view state about like doing the date formatting there. But I guess because the date is passed in, like because you're at least doing that dependency injection, then we could still test it like we saw. But here, so I could put all this logic again inside that header, but then it just makes the test. It makes the test annoying because of the like today argument that like I could write the test for every day in January, but then one day I'm going to run this CI in January and then it's going to fail. So it makes more sense here, like where we don't care about like today, tomorrow, yesterday. We'll just get the suffix in this utility function. That's fine. Um, okay, so let's make a test. Um, yeah, I like getting rid of that KT. We'll do this here. Okay, so I'm going to write them all out because I don't want to do a for loop because I mean I could write a for loop to be fancy, but I want to be like very specific here about each one from like 1 to 31. So let's just write them all out. So um, let's do 1. Um, actually, we're going to try something crazy here. So we're going to do date. We're going to do local date dot of. So at the minimum, I need to give it year. Wait, you can give it a month? What is month an enum? Huh. Okay, that makes sense. Does January have 31 days? I think the answer to that is yes. Um, I have seen stuff like that. I've seen some libraries that do stuff like that. Okay, so does anyone remember? Okay, so here, so we got. Oh, oh my God. I guess I could do. Okay, we could do a for loop for the inputs at least. I guess it's more just like the suffixes I don't. Well, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do 1 to 31 for each, or rather map, and then we can do this. So local date that of, and then day of month. So here, okay, and then we can do um like suffixes will be dates.map, get suffix for day of month. So here we can do everything. So we could say like assert that suffixes of, well, I guess starting at 0 um, is equal to st, right? Um, and then 1, is this what I want to do? I guess this is what I want to do. I want to do like 1 to 30, 0 to 30. I guess I could, I guess I could just write the for loop. But the thing I feel feels weird is like, am I jumping way too ahead? I mean, no, I should be writing out like the assertions for this input. I would expect this output. Like that seems what I should be doing, right? Mm. One for each suffix? I mean, I guess. I guess they could be their own test. I could also just pick, like, yeah, I could write one for each. Mm. Mm. I see what you're saying. So you're saying, so you're suggesting I do something like this, where I say, I do something like this. And then I say, okay, assert that Jan first dot get suffix for day of month is equal to st. So we start here and we get this to pass. And then we can write another test for the other ones, and so on and so forth. Um, I'm just wondering, like, do I really want? I, I guess the other thing is, do I really need 31 assertions, or should I just try to make assertions for each group? Um, yeah, I could do that. I guess it's the th suffix that's just going to have a lot of assertions if I want it to be very specific. Um, and the first, oh, I guess you could also have you could have one, you could have 21, and then you could have 31 as possibilities here. Um, I'm wondering if I should do like a list. Okay, so yeah, but here's how I would do this. I've got it. I've got it. Um, so here's what we're gonna do. Here's how we're gonna make this super readable without copy and pasting a million lines. Thank you for letting me talk through it. I know exactly what it needs to do. So we've got our expected dates, right? Um, or rather, dates with st suffix are going to be 1, 21, and 31. This list of. So, or let's call this, sorry, let's call this days with it. So here, then we can go dates will be days with the suffix that map. Um, and then we could do like we can create a date, you know, 2020 month dot January with the day. We can get our suffixes, which will be dates dot map, and then we do date dot get suffix for day of month, and then we can do suffixes dot for each. We could say assert that suffix that is equal to st. And we can do the same thing for the other groups. We'll still have kind of this like long input list, but this would be repeatable. Um, so let's run it. I mean, it fails, but that's fine. So let's do the same thing for the, I guess, nd suffix. So this would be the second, the 22nd, and no month has a 32nd that I know about. So we don't have to worry about that. That would be nd, second. Yeah. Um, we'll have RD, so this would be like the third and the 23rd. Extract the method to create. Yeah, I could. We could do something like this. We could do like um, so here we'll do return this dot map local date of 2020 month dot January day dot map. I guess I don't even need two maps. I could just do get suffix here. I was just trying to be readable and split it up. Um, I guess because the method I'm calling is called get suffix. I mean, isn't that what this is? I guess it's just not an extension function, but it's the same idea. Accepts a list of days and returns the suffixes for those days. So I can say like list of 323 that convert to suffixes. And then I can just do this in each test. And then I could even really just get rid of the variable here. Whoops, not that far. So this is one way to do it. So I guess instead of get, we could say, like parse st suffixes. I don't know. Parse nd. Oops. And then parse rd suffixes. Okay, so we've got like first, second, third, and then the rest are the ones that would end in like a th. So this would be like parse th suffixes. Um, so this would be a list of, let's see, so we've got 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. We've got 11, 12, 13. I guess all of those. 20th. And then, but first, second, third. So then we would go back to 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. And that would be it. I guess it wants to make that, it wants to shorten that, which is fair. Um, can I make this smaller? I absolutely could. Um, because I could do like, I could do ranges. So I could do like, do I want to, hold on, humor me for 1 second. The 4th to the 9th, basically all of the 10s, um, and then 24 to 30. And then I can do flat map, um, or flatten. That's what I want. Convert to suffixes, and then for each suffix, assert that suffix that is equal to th. All right. Clever. And every test is now short without a million copy pasta lines. We can run it, it'll fail, we know that, so let's implement it. Now, do I want to copy from Stack Overflow or do I want to try to remember? I think I'm going to try to remember. So day of month is going to be this dot. Do we have? We do. We have this dot day of month. So um, so we can do, I guess, return when. So let's start with our known edge case of um, day of month greater than or equal to 11 and day of month less than or equal to 13. Um, we return th. Oh, they want me to convert to a range check, which makes sense. Um, I guess we could do like else when day of month. Oh, when day of month mod 10. So here, if it's 1, we do st, 2, we do second, 3, we do third, else, th again. Why does this want? Oh, nice, you can do that. Interesting. Okay, so if our day of month is in the range of 11, 12, 13, this is like a unique case where those are the 11th, 12th, 13th. Um, Otherwise, we do mod 10, which will work for every other date of the month. So let's run this and let's see if this passes. Um, I might have to go after I write this test, sorry. Oh, but they passed. Okay, never mind. We are good. But nice, this passed. So now that we have this, what we can do is we can go back to our hmm. Oh, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. I know exactly what we need to do. Okay, so the first thing, well, we're also going to want to add. So one thing is like this one for parse date string for the future. The other thing is we're going to need like um so like we're gonna have like a suffix, which would be 2 days from now dot. So this is on our date time title. So what shows up here, right? We wrote a test to make sure that this date gets parsed correctly. We're going to write another test to make sure we're applying the correct suffix on this. So first, we're going to get suffix from day of month, and then here's what we'll do. So parse date string will be this, and so our expected date string is going to be the parse date string followed by the suffix. So if I run this test, this will fail because we haven't yet modified the implementation, right? So let's just run it and let's see if that's true. So we expected Jan 21st, but we got Jan 21. So let's go into here and let's pull that suffix. So suffix is going to be selected date that get suffix for day of month. And then here we'll return UI string suffix. Let's rename this. So this will be, we'll call this date string. So we get the suffix, we apply it to the string text, and now if we run that unit test, it should pass. And then once the unit test passes, we can run the app and check it out. Nice. Let's run the app. Let's try it out. And the other thing I need to do before I submit this pull request is let's get our stream history updated for this one. I still have to clean up last week's. We'll get there. 16. So let's do this tasks by date, we'll call it. So in this stream, we modified our task list stream to pull tasks for a specific date and implemented button click listeners so the user can navigate forward and backward through date. Fad positioning, that was one thing we did. And then also task by date. Okay, and so now this is running. If I move forward, awkward. Why didn't that work? It's there. Date string, suffix. Did I press run before I completed what I was doing? Maybe. Oh, nope, here we go. Yes, I must have just ran it. So we see 22nd, 23rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. Nice. I noticed that we see 08th. I think if I want to correct that, all I have to do is change this to be one character. And it will grow to 2 if necessary because of the date. Let's try that out. Yeah, this is neat. Thanks for sharing this. Okay, so those are all the 2 digits. They're still working. Yep, and if it's a single digit, we dropped that 0. Nice. Put that to title. And let's get the pull request going. Yeah, an animation would be cool. I thought about it. Maybe we can do something. Unless I change it to a calendar. Yeah. But an animation would still be cool. Oh, failed. Ooh, we got some magic numbers here. Um, that's fine. I'm gonna suppress magic number in this case. Um, it's not great, but I feel like given the method name, that someone can look at this and kind of understand what the it's not in the test actually. This is our actual extension function that gets the suffix. Um, detect is excluding for a lot of things. It excludes tests, which is cool. Actually, just to share this in case you didn't know this. So if I look up magic number, if I could type, um, so it has this excludes that says in these directories we exclude the magic number check, and it's because they kind of expect like in your tests you might supply very specific numbers because of testing. It's also cool. This one's actually quite thorough. Like you can tell it what to ignore. So like a few times in our code base we used 1, and detect ignores that by default because that could be like an incrementation. I think I added 2 and 10 myself, but you can configure like a whole bunch of stuff, like ignoring ranges, ignoring extension functions. Actually, I'm surprised that that meant mine didn't fail. But anyways, Um, yeah, that's fine. We'll do that. Um, pressing magic number. Do a push. Nice. Okay, so let's get the pull request going on this. Um, viewing tasks by date. So allows the user to navigate um, the selected date and see tasks based on that. We'll give this enhancement. This can go in the task management. We'll also say fixes number 84. Yeah, create pull request. So if we look at this pull request, this fails because I didn't update stream history, but because it's coming in the next PR, that's fine. So I'm going to close this one. I wonder if this... Okay, so this is fine. Yeah, so we're at 9:30. The question is whether or not we want to do something else. Um, how long is our stream? Ooh, 2.5 hours. Um, okay. I'm fine with going for a little longer. I'm going to pause here because I think what I'm going to do is the next stuff that I do, I think I'm going to split up into a second video on YouTube. So if I do that, this is a cool breaking point for the folks watching on YouTube.